Hi everybody. In today's episode of Ask David, I'm going to answer what type of lenses to use for landscape photography. Hey David, I want to take some landscapes on our travels that are coming up as we're going overseas. What type of lenses are good for landscape photography? Well, there are lots of good options, as there always are, and some of it's going to be determined by what type of subject you want to take pictures of. In general, landscapes really benefit from having a lens on the wide side. So you can use a 50mm lens. Here are a couple of landscape photos I've taken with a 50mm lens. As you can see, those types of landscape photos with the 50mm really give a nice sense to the image because it's not a typical focal length used for landscape images. You could also use something ultra wide like the Samyang 10mm. Here are some photos I've taken of landscapes with the Samyang 10mm. You could even take landscapes with a telephoto if you're far enough away from your subject. That's pretty specialized, really uncommon, so I actually don't even have a sample that I can share with you of that type of technique. But it's possible. In general, though, you want to go wide for landscapes. Let's say you're shooting digital. The Samyang 10mm that I use is a fantastic landscape lens. You can get pretty close to your subject and still get a lot in focus. It has a hyperfocal distance from right in front of the lens to infinity at f/6. So you don't even have to lose sharpness before you're getting a really good depth of field. Anything much narrower than a 28mm lens is going to make it a little bit harder to compose a landscape image. 28s can be used pretty well. I've generally been very happy with 28mm lenses for landscapes, but 24mm, slightly better for a landscape. 18mm, if it's rectilinear and not a fisheye, also a really good option for landscapes. The big thing with landscapes is that if you want to take an eye-catching, really great, near landscape porn grade landscape image, what you want to try to do is capture the foreground, what's right in front of your lens, all the way to infinity in focus. So your exact millimeter length of your lens should be secondary to the hyperfocal depth of field. How far can you get things into focus at f8 or f11 when you're using your hyperfocal distance out to infinity? That's really important, and that's based on your lens design and your camera's flange focal distance, which is different by mount. A 28mm lens on Pentax and Nikon will have a different hyperfocal distance than one on Canon and other mounts, simply because of how far the lens is from the digital sensor or film plane. So when picking out your landscape lens, something wide like a 28 will work, or wider, and just make sure that when you set your infinity mark to f11, that the corresponding f11 mark is fairly close, like this one at 3 feet. This is the Olympus 28mm f2.8. So wide, good hyperfocal range.